Locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. As we head into a new year, new opportunities, what are you going to do with your passion, and how can you turn your passion into something that's profitable but also connects with a deeper sense of purpose and hopefully even make some positive transformation in the world? Wouldn't that be great? Well, today's guest has done that and is doing that in the realm of creating powerful, uplifting music. From a small town in northern Michigan, the uplifting pop rock musician Brotha James is turning heads across the globe. Fans describe his music as uplifting, inspirational, and energizing. In a sea of disempowering music, Brotha James's music creates songs with lyrics and beats that bring out the best in you. Brotha James, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Hey man, thank you so much for having me.
Really excited to dig into your craft and your art with positive music. We certainly need that, and I think that's tremendous. First of all, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into music, and what was the influence that got you heading in this direction of uplifting pop rock?
Yeah, well, I started playing music when I was just a young man in my mom and dad's kitchen, when I would go pull the pots and pans out of the cabinets and then grab 2 wooden spoons.
Yeah.
And then tell my mom and dad to come in the kitchen and watch me play drums. So, yeah. So moms, if you're listening, or dads, the pots and pans and the wooden spoons are tools for pure entertainment, at least for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So I started doing, I was always like into music. My mom and dad were both into music, especially my dad was into Michael Jackson and into the Beatles. And then through like maybe, I would sing songs when I was little. And then when I was in middle school, I got into saxophone. And then I really wanted to be a drummer. So when I was in high school, my mom got me a drum set. I played drums in some bands in high school. And then maybe when I was like 26 years old, I was selling Cutco knives and had done pretty good at Cutco and selling it and becoming a top rep, and was like, oh, wow, there's got to be more than just making money. Like, what else is there? And so I joined a band and started touring as like a hand percussion player and kind of started managing a band back in like 2006. And that took me to 2013, and I realized that being in bands meant that I always was going to have to rely on other people to make music with, and I maybe should consider going off on my own, and I should become the singer. What's interesting is at that time I wasn't allowed to sing in the band. All I could do was really rap, beatbox a little bit, and I played hand percussion like tambourines and shakers and congas and kind of the auxiliary sounds that come from a drum set. And so in 2013, I realized that I had something to say, and I had a lot of tools to go make that happen. Meaning, I had done enough in my Cutco business to realize, like, oh wow, these are kind of universal tools. If I can apply them to something else, I probably can be successful doing this. Tools like being consistent, showing up on time, clearly laying out your goals. Creating clear and strong intentions of why those goals are important for you to hit, and then realizing you're going to have to overcome obstacles and challenges, and that's just part of the game. And so I was like, I could probably become a singer and a songwriter if I just dig in and commit to doing it. I'd also heard that it takes 10 years to become an overnight success from my good friend Hal Elrod, and I just took that to heart and realized it was going to be a 10-year journey. So 2013, I decided I was going to start singing, start making music. And I recorded an album in 2014, 15, put it out there. It was 5 songs, and 2 of the songs really stuck. One song called Animal, and then the song that really started to create a movement for me, at least, or at least momentum, was a song called Grateful, which has an embedded question that says, what am I grateful for in the song, which allows thoughts for a person to start thinking of what they're grateful for. And people really love those 2 songs. And then I started to get more opportunities to play at clubs, venues, festivals, and I got into the events world and started playing this uplifting pop rock music at live entrepreneurial events or corporate events. Not traditionally where like you have a party. I would actually just play like 2 or 3 songs during their meetings. And I started to see that, wow, this music has this power to bring people a ton of energy. And then I really started to digging into like, well, what does it mean to position words that empower a human being inside of music? Like, I was doing that on the first album, and then the second album I started to just be far more intentional, and I started to study the power of words and the way we put words together. And I was like, wow, most music actually is hurting us psychologically. It's hurting our ability to see what we want, because a lot of times music is telling us what we don't want. And we sing along to it, and we say it like we're saying an affirmation. And so I started to feel a responsibility this past couple of years to really make music that has a message that empowers the human spirit. So that's how that's like the trajectory of how I got started.
Yeah. Well, that's very powerful. And it's unusual in the sense that you became intentional about wanting to influence people in a positive way. You know, a lot of musicians, they're just going to go with whatever they feel like going with, whatever the vibe is. And as you said, the vibe very often is a negative vibe. But what was going on in it, other than just the development of your music? What made your journey different in the sense that you were approaching this from a completely different paradigm? It's a paradigm of, we're going to create positive in a world of negativity. What influenced you in that direction?
I would say there's 3 things that really influenced me. One is my own experience of becoming a top sales rep. And then between 2012 or 2011 and 2014, 15, I then took my Cutco business and started to build it in a different division inside of a real estate closing gift business. So if you're a realtor on this show, you've probably heard of Cutco closing gifts. And I was one of the pioneers of bringing that program forward when it first got started. And to do that, I had to learn a lot about how to empower myself. And so naturally, as I started to write music like that, I was literally writing music to empower myself. Like, I was writing music to help myself and to hear the messages that I just needed to hear more of. And I was familiar with saying them in affirmation form, which is, saying them out loud with no music, and usually not as much tonality shifts. And I realized if I just put like a question of what am I grateful for, because the study of gratitude, if I just put it as a song and sang it all the time, that I would be focusing on those things. So part of it was for myself. Secondly is there's an amazing musician, Jason Mraz, who has become very intentional about the way he writes lyrics. I don't know if he's as intentional as I am, only because he's been a musician for a long time, and I've gone through lots of like trainings on exactly how you position words. But he's a huge inspiration and just does it naturally. And I think over the last 2 albums, he's become incredibly intentional about helping people feel good and feel love through the power of music. And then I think the third one is, I was amazed by how people responded. I was a little nervous to write a song called Grateful, because I thought you needed to write songs that were a little more hip and a little more kind of like not as straightforward in order for people to like it. And so I think the third thing that has allowed more of the music to come forward is I think people are starving for it. And when I realized that what it could do, especially to people who want to listen to quality music with their kids, I started to realize that there was like a major responsibility to provide something that the marketplace does not have a lot of. And what they do have of it, if you were to Google motivational music, and then you were to look at what are these words doing, you'll find out that it's everything but motivational. What's motivational is the melody and the beats,
Right.
and like the musical content. The lyrics are not motivational, which can work very much against you if you've got this very deep connection to these beats and this music and these melodies to where you're screaming them out loud, but the lyrics are about what you don't have, or about something that's broken or missing, or a problem, or a negative feeling. Like, it's driving deep into the system of what it means to be a human. So I started to see a big responsibility.
That's really powerful. And I think we intuitively know, but psychologists will also confirm scientifically that music does create powerful shifts in people. And so to be able to it's like you became aware of that, even to an even greater extent when you discovered the power of words to create shifts in your own life. And then what's so cool is you turned it around and began to use that very powerful process to help other people as well. So speaking of that, you mentioned children. Tell us a little bit more about who do you perform for? Who is your market? Who is your ideal consumer of your genre of music?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's really a two-part answer. One is, how do people consume it? Because it is music, so I don't have to be there live, right? So if they get the music on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, or they have the CD or whatever, then the main market I serve is entrepreneurs who have had an experience with some sort of personal growth where they feel like, empowering themselves through the books they read, the music they listen to, the people they surround themselves with, the music they watch, that they've found that those ingredients can create empowerment or disempowerment in them. So entrepreneurs who are, I'd say, growth mindseted, who have kids, because the kids we're in a whole new world of the access that kids have to music and media. And to have something like a Brotha James CD that you can pop in or put on Spotify or whatever, and enjoy that on the way to school, or on the way to a sports game, or a Saturday dance party, or a morning ritual. So I mainly make music, like when I'm thinking about making it, when I'm writing it, I'm thinking about people who are growth mindseted. Generally, those are entrepreneurial people, because however much they grow themselves is how much their business grows. So they naturally gear towards that, versus someone who's in a static type of position where they don't need to grow because they're going to make the same amount of money no matter what. So entrepreneurs who have kids are like the main group of people that I serve. And then in the live events, I serve any corporate leader or event planner who wants to bring some energy, some heart, and some creativity into their events, because meetings suck and events pretty much suck. Like across the board, if you run events or if you're in meetings, you're in an industry that is shifting and needs to shift, because people don't want to go to the meetings. Like, people want to be excited to be somewhere. So I work with a lot of different organizations on bringing art and creativity and live music and energy and positive words into their meetings and into their big events.
Very exciting and very unique, the niche that you have carved out for yourself, and kind of stumbled upon, but have really, I think you own it in a way that is very unique. So I think you've touched on this, and you've probably touched on a couple of different things, but I always like to ask, what's the biggest problem you see with the people that you're trying to help? And it could be a number of things. You mentioned boring meetings. That's definitely one of the biggest problems. And the sea of negativity. But if maybe that's it, or maybe there's kind of an overarching obstacle that you're working with people to get them from where they are to where they want to be, but they have to overcome this barrier or this obstacle or this problem. What would you say is the biggest problem you solve with your uplifting music?
I think the biggest problem I solve is our general ability to be complacent as human beings. We just we can shift into this place where we're okay running mediocre meetings, and we're okay listening to music that and watching things that disempower us. And so, like, the biggest problem I see that I serve is I give people options. Like, no one else is clearly saying what I'm saying. I can't find it. So, like, the biggest problem is that we're kind of complacent, and we're in this mode of what just has been and what is. And so the way I'm solving the problem is by bringing a new vocabulary, even something as simple as uplifting pop rock. Like, if you go try and find that, you won't find very much of it. And it's a huge freaking tool for us as human beings to empower ourselves through singing positive words about things that we want. And there's not really a vocabulary out there for it. Or like you said, it's a niche that I own because no one else has gotten it. No one else has done it. So I think complacency, and there's a great movie called Tomorrowland with George Clooney and the guy from that TV show House. And the kind of the bottom line of the movie is, like, we're attracted to negative things. So not only do we get complacent as, like, just who we are, we also are literally attracted to negativity. So we have to be very aware that we have something inside of us that likes problems, that likes to see what's wrong with other people to build ourselves up. And that's just in the patterns that we're training ourselves with. And so I think those are a couple of the problems that I see that in myself, by the way, not in others, but in myself and in, other humans as well.
Very, very powerful observations. You have mentioned, and we talked at the opening of this, about identifying your passion, connecting it with a deeper sense of purpose. And in between that is something very interesting. And I think a lot of our listeners struggle with this, or many of them, maybe not a lot, but many of them struggle, particularly in the beginning of their business. And that is creating financial vehicles to support what you're passionate about. I wonder if you could speak to that, and how do we identify our passion and create a financial vehicle to support it and connect it to a deeper sense of purpose in our business and in our life? You've obviously done that for yourself. How could we do likewise?
Yep. I love that question, Ralph. I love the question. I think it's one of the most important questions we can be asking ourselves as we move into 2020 and as we move into this next adventure of being human beings. We have a lot of things that are changing in our world, and I think what I'm about to answer is one of the most significant pieces of what we will become. And so how do you identify your passion? Number one is you create space to think about it and to write about it and to work on it. Passion is not going to hit you in the face. It is not going to come up it's not Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy or the Easter Bunny. It's something you have to work on. So get out a journal, write down the 10, 15 things you're most excited about. Like what are the things you love to do? You could say, what are the things you love to do that you would do even if you didn't get paid? So the questions that you might ask to identify the passions, I'll give you a couple. One, what did I love to do when I was a little kid before anyone told me who to be or expectations were placed upon me? So what did I love to do when I was a little kid? And you'll have to do work here. This is not something that'll just be in the mind. It has to be, you have to go investigate. So look for stories when you were younger, when you felt fulfilled. What were you naturally attracted to? What did you love to do? What were you fascinated with? And go find that. And maybe that's an ingredient. I don't know if that's the thing for you, but it could be. And it's a good thing to look at because it's the story of who you were before the world conditioned you to be who you are. And so there's information there, like vital information for this type of like practice. And the next thing is create the space, journal, write down the 10 or 15 things. My life would be awesome if these were happening. My life would be ideal if these were happening. My life would be extraordinary. Use whatever word you want. My life is this. My life is super fulfilling. And write down all that list and then start to look at that list and start to identify what are the most important ones in here that really stand out to me. If I were to look at these and really ask myself, what am I really drawn to? And you might have to come back to the list a couple times before you really identify it. So those are a couple ways. to identify what I would call like root opportunities or ideas of what you could be passionate about. And then here's where the time really starts to come in, is you have to dedicate time every week to go explore what it feels like to do those things. Maybe not all of them. You're looking for which one is the top one. What's the top domino, the lead thing? And again, this takes a little bit of work because you're writing down, you're looking at it, you're investigating, you're asking, how do I feel? You might have to journal on each one of the passions to start identifying like, oh, this is where this is really like, this is how this is part of who I am and part of my life and what will fulfill me. So it's a process to identify. And when you can identify the one, the two things, maybe three things, you're like, I love these things. These are really cool. Make sure there's time in your life for them. And maybe you're one of the lucky ones in this crazy adventure of life that has already connected to like what you do for a living or what you've already created space for as like your main hobby or hobbies. Already have your passions in them. Then you can look back and be proud of yourself and ask, how might I evolve these or, grow these if I want to, or am I just happy where they are because you're feeling fulfilled about the different ways you've aligned your life. But if you're feeling like there's something else and you can't quite put your finger on it, make sure that you have time in your life. And maybe that means you have to make a little less money. And you have to be really intentional about your schedule to be able to practice putting these important pieces in to go have an experience with them. And then within that experience, then comes the information of like, oh, wow, this is the thing. Signs will show up, people, places, things, experiences, they will come out of nowhere to support the thing you're supposed to do. And then when you realize that, if you want to turn it into a career, the number one thing to not do is don't vilify where you're at right now. The number one thing I see entrepreneurs do over and over again, or business people, anyone in a career, is they want to get to the passion or to the thing they love, and then they turn their back on the financial vehicle and look at all the reasons why they want to get out as quickly as they can, and how awesome life will be when they get to this other spot.
Yeah.
Totally not true. How do you love on, appreciate, and give as much energy as you can to this financial vehicle so that it can support your investigation of the passion? And then also how do you balance it out and create really generative conversations with business partners, bosses, spouses on how to start wheeling back the income on one thing to create more space to grow something else. And then now you got to dance. And they might go back and forth. And that's how you get to having the freedom and the flexibility and the clarity to turn a passion into a reality. And then you got to do a whole bunch of other things once the passion creates momentum, like scaling, hiring the right people, making sure that you're doing the right things. But that's the process of getting there.
Yeah, I think the hard part is getting started, finding that place.
Hard part, for sure.
But
hard part's getting started.
With those questions, those are very powerful questions. As we ask those questions and then go in search of the answers, that is very empowering. That is a very important shift that we all have to make. And so I encourage our listeners, if this is where you are and you're still in this phase of trying to find what you're passionate about, take these questions or similar questions and begin to ask these questions. Create the space that you need to be able to work on this. It's that important. Brother James, what are you working on right now that's got you really excited that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I like to categorize life in some ways. I have three things that I'm really working on right now. One is I am really intentionally working on being a digital marketer of music and becoming a master at being able to move music from a warehouse all across the world without having to be there. So essentially, digital marketing is my number one domino and goal for this year. And the other thing that I'm working on is recording 5 new songs, which I'll be in the studio in about a week, 5 new songs that will be released every 2 or 3 months in 2020. And the name of those 5 songs is Love, Come Together, Mama, Wisdom, and Play. And I'm going to release those songs at different times. And then the third thing is I have just this wonderful woman that I get to spend time with. And I'm really excited and inspired to make sure that I'm being a good partner and a that I'm creating space for that passion in my life in a very intentional way.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it sounds to me that you have really tapped into something very powerful, and I think that you are on a trajectory that's going to really be impactful to a lot of people, particularly our young people. But I really love the entrepreneurial focus as well. So this has really been uplifting and inspiring to dig into your work, Brother James, and I really appreciate it. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yes. My last thought is, and it kind of goes with the answer to the question that you had, which is how do you identify your passion, and then how do you create a financial vehicle that can support it and then potentially turn it into your actual business? One of the most important ingredients to that is asking why. So purpose, we're all looking for a sense of purpose in life. As human beings, I think if we look at the study of positive psychology, we realize that, wow, in order for us to feel a deep sense of well-being, happiness, feel like our life is fulfilling, purpose ends up being a really key piece to it. That we're here for a reason. And the reason that we're here is only going to be identified through us asking questions about why we do the things we do. And so when you start to, if you're in a place where you already have a thriving business and it's around your passion and you're feeling really great, or you're in a place where you're just getting started, or you're somewhere in the middle, or you're somewhere in your life where you're just like, I don't know what's next. Start asking, why is this important to me? Why is this important to others? And why is this potentially important to the world? And give yourself space to journal about it, because in those answers start to become a beautifully woven, something of purpose, because you're investigating it, purpose. You're investigating what the purpose is of doing the things that you want to do or are doing. And in that is significant information about your life. And when you connect it to these senses of purpose for yourself and for others and for the world potentially, then getting up every day turns into kind of this beautiful expression of trying to help someone else. And along the way, hopefully really enjoy yourself and grow yourself and challenge yourself and go through the ups and downs. But without the question of why is this important to me, others in the world, we might have exactly what we want and not even know it's there.
Very, very powerful words of wisdom from Brother James. In a sea of disempowering music, Brother James's music creates songs with lyrics and beats that bring out the best in you. You can find out more at brothajames.com. We'll have that link on the Rebelpreneur website as well. Brother James, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your passion with our listeners here on Rebelpreneur Radio. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the time and the space.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.